This is Salt Lake City, and first of all, it is a real pleasure. I'm so excited to be in Hamburg, in the green capital of Europe. I've been hearing a lot about Hamburg for many, many years, and looking forward to getting better acquainted with it and with all the marvelous things you're doing here that I look forward to bringing back to my community and learning from. I enjoyed listening to this last panel, in part because, as was described by a number of the speakers, what we see going on in the United States is an incredible competition, a very healthy competition among cities to be the greenest cities, to be the most sustainable cities. And we all like to brag about things that we're doing. And we all like to think we are the greenest city, or are becoming the greenest city. And there's probably no better goal we can have as communities when 80% of the population of our country lives in cities. When an even larger percentage of our economy is based in cities, we feel, I think, among us who are active in our communities, particularly as elected officials, that regardless of the fact that there is no national direction, any meaningful direction that's happening, certainly out of Congress, that we can do so much within our communities that hopefully we can offset that lack of direction. Not that it isn't desperately needed, it is, but that we can do an awful lot. You can see here Salt Lake City, and we love to, I was skiing on Sunday. One of the wonderful things about Salt Lake is that literally you can be in downtown and within 10 minutes be in the mountain wilderness walking. And that is a rare, both a rare experience, but also a rare value probably for any place in the world. I moved to Salt Lake in 1974 to both go to school, but also was heavily attracted to its natural setting and as a community. And Salt Lake has an amazing history. When the Mormon settlers first came into the valley in 1847, it was not even part of the United States. They were seeking refuge. They had been persecuted across the East and the Midwest, literally getting burned out of their settlements, and settled in Salt Lake. And between 1847 and when the railroads were connected, the Transcontinental Railroad was first connected in the United States in 1869, just north of Salt Lake. It was a largely self-sufficient community. Today we would call that sustainable. But it was a community that developed its own water. We're in a very arid environment. It was a community that provided all of its own food, its clothing, developed its mineral resources. At that time, there really wasn't much of a need for mineral resources. It was an agricultural economy. And was a largely communal society. So it was a very different place than it is today. And then even the ideological and the values are today for Utah, certainly. But I raise that in part because that tradition, that history of self-sufficiency, there are still so many people that have fruit trees in their backyard and can their fruit or vegetables. That tradition is something that I find we can draw on very heavily when we incorporate fully this concept of sustainability today. When I came into office, my background was as an environmental planner and lawyer, so this stuff was kind of part of my professional life and part of the work that I've been doing for a long time. But undertook to take what had really already started as a fairly ambitious effort, I thought, of doing things like we heard before about converting our traffic signals. We've converted all of our traffic signals to LED. We're well on the way to converting all of our traffic lights. And as was mentioned, it both saves an enormous amount of money. It improves, in the case of Salt Lake, our air quality. We have because we are a bowl surrounded by mountains, we have severe air quality problems that go beyond what would be the norm in a place that had different meteorological and climatological conditions. And obviously has some energy benefits. But I decided we really needed to take a comprehensive and a holistic look at everything that we're doing. So for a year, for example, we did a complete review of all of our codes. And we found over 300 places where the city was either getting in the way, and I think all of us would find this in our laws, was either getting in the way or wasn't providing the right incentive. We've now made over 100 changes to our codes. We kind of prioritize the need, what would have the most effect. And sometimes those are the most difficult. In fact, one that we're still struggling with, for example, in Salt Lake. Some things were easy to do. Our agricultural background, for example, made it easy for us to allow for raising chickens and having beehives in our yards, which were previously allowed, because people relate so much to agriculture. But in Salt Lake, in the 1980s, for example, there had been a tremendous effort to preserve single-family residences around the downtown area. And so areas had been, what's called downzoned, had been reduced in their density to try to protect those neighborhoods. Now we're talking about adding accessory dwelling units or mother-in-law apartments, people call them by a lot of different names, in the same place, and we're finding those very same neighborhoods that have fought so hard to protect their neighborhoods and the quality of their neighborhoods, resisting it. But we're going through and changing all of our ordinances, whether it relates to growing vegetables or having greenhouses or selling crops from your garden or converting uses back to agriculture where there's open space, or whether we're talking about how we deal with waste. We've set a goal in Salt Lake, which we're well on the way of achieving, a 50% diversion from our landfill by 2015. We were at 18% when I came into office, which was 4 years ago. I'm in my 5th year. And we've now set a zero waste goal in the future.